Warning, this episode contains mild to heavy, explicit spoilers. Listen at your own risk.
Reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is The Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
A woman wakes up like any other day, readying herself for the world outside. She dresses, admires photos of her children, and tiredly makes her way out the doors of her apartment complex. She is never seen again after this moment. A hushed panic descends on the rest of the residents of the building as they realize outside their windows is a nothingness, a pure absence of light, and whoever steps through this nothingness does not return. This is the opening to Guillaume Lecloux's morose science fiction horror The Tower, also known in release as The Lockdown Tower, possibly and stupidly capitalizing on the phrase used throughout 2020's worldwide plague. This feature, genre-defying, is one of the more mystifying and miserable efforts to come from France, a quasi-light character study on the human condition told in a series of progressive, morally bankrupt vignettes. No real plot other than to see people suffer in the face of inhuman situations. Owing its premise to projects like Under the Dome or even the Simpsons movie, The Tower makes the situation of being bottled up even more claustrophobic in focusing the danger zone to one single apartment complex, or the only one that we know of. If you look out the windows, there's no landscape, no horizon. If you try to step foot out of the entrance door of the building, whatever limb that goes in first is shorn off, cauterized if you pull back. If you go full body, say sayonara. We're introduced to a number of main characters, some of which won't even make it past the first 15 minutes of the film. To name them seems a little pointless since everyone is essentially cannon fodder and there's no individual propelling lead story. We have Angélie Mac as Assitan, daughter of the woman who steps out of the building in the opening of the film. We assume when it was safe to. She does quite the excellent work of playing from teenager into her 20s. Yes, this film spans years, and a suspense of disbelief is needed, not only about the people eating exteriors. She is left to fend for herself with her younger brother. There's Hatik as Ahmed, a gangster with a strong will, and Driss, played by Kevin Bago, the other strong arm of the building. Bruno, played by Jean-Baptiste Seckler, who was a prominent and trusted but ruthless protector of his place, and Matthias, played by Modeste Nspraza, who adds a supernatural element to the feature. So why do I list these characters in a useless roll call? Well, this location becomes divided into three factions between the whites, the blacks, and the North Africans. It's a bit of Walter Hill's The Warriors meets Ben Wheatley's High Rise meets Kazuo Umezu's The Drifting Classroom. Now, simply using the nothingness as a reason to keep these characters in prison and causing infighting and other desperate human horrors is enough to make an intriguing film, and I was by no means bored by this, though there was a sense of hopelessness tinged throughout the story that made me go, who is this for? I've spoken in the past about another film, 2008 John Bergen's From Inside, an animated feature about a train driving the last of humanity through an apocalyptic wasteland that was probably the most miserable nihilistic film I've covered for this show. And most horror movies have a bad ending, and for that film to stand out says something. This film is thankfully not that depressing. It is compelling enough to keep my attention without curling into a ball. I still ask, what is the point? We jump around from character to character. Some we think are protagonists that fade into the background to focus on other unsavory types trying to survive on pet dogs and cats. If you're an animal lover, beware. Though there is no graphic cruelty to animals besides a tasering of a barking dog slightly off camera, Old Fluffy is on the menu tonight, boys. The ever-simmering race war is always about to go off. Women, particularly one of the gay women, have to essentially prostitute themselves to get her fill of hash. How do people make drugs or even potatoes with no natural light? I guess there are some small pot farms littered throughout the apartments, but some greens are being made, and some people are pregnant. What you think is going to happen will happen. Most likely this film is a discussion on the themes of class and race as the landscape of France itself changes between Caucasians, Africans, and descendants of peoples of Arab blood. How each respective race bands with their own kind to never trust and always destroy the other. It's interesting and it's very obvious, but it doesn't seem to be the real focus of the movie besides people feeling like garbage and stealing dogs and being thrown out of windows into the all-consuming blackness. It seems to go where you think the human condition will go in these instances. I'm fine with the consuming outside not being explained. That's the general underlying fear. What I'm not okay with is the lack of propelling storyline, We're simply seeing these characters suffer with no payoff. We even see someone homeless living in an apartment building. The violence is subtle and sometimes very graphic. The score is ambient but good. The acting is pretty good all in all. I think it's simply a well-made pointless feature that I guess is about the human will to survive no matter what. So then by the end of the movie, when a character is telling an allegorical story about a lion and a dog, I have no clue what it's comparable to in the film itself, if that's even what's going on. Even the final lines echo the final words of 2008's Martyrs, which is an ambiguous statement that feels deeper with no context around it. 6 out of 10 getting your groove on with 2 ladies, then getting thrown out of a window into the darkness. This has been the Horror Deconstruction.